Welcome back to the latest Science Bits. I'm your host, and today we're embarking on a deep dive investigation into another trend that has shifted from the fringes of bodybuilding into the mainstream of clinical nutrition: protein maxing. While social media is saturated with bro science, the biological reality of high-protein diets is far more complex and, frankly, more interesting. Over the next few minutes, we are going to unpack the physiological mechanisms, the documented benefits for metabolic health, and the very real risks that research suggests we must consider before overhauling our macros. As we go through this, it's important to remember that nutritional science is rarely settled. Throughout our discussion, I'll be using cautious language like research suggests or studies indicate, because, as the sources remind us, individual responses to these diets can vary significantly based on age, activity level, and underlying health. And always remember to consult a healthcare professional before you make dramatic changes to your diet. Let's start by defining exactly what we mean when we talk about a protein maxing. To understand protein maxing, we first have to understand the baseline. For decades, the gold standard has been the recommended dietary allowance, or RDA, set at a modest 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. This level was primarily designed as a floor, the bare minimum required to avoid nitrogen deficiency in a sedentary adult. However, protein maxing involves consuming levels that research suggests may be more optimal rather than just sufficient. How high are we talking? In the scientific literature, high protein is actually a moving target. Research often explores ranges from 1.2 grams per kilogram all the way up to 4.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. To put that in perspective, for a 70 kilogram, 154-pound person, that's a jump from 56 grams of protein to over 300 grams. Some researchers, like Billsborough and colleagues, suggest that 2.0 to 2.5 grams per kilogram per day may be the sweet spot for weight control without toxic effects, while others, like Morales, argue for a range of 1.5 to 2.0 grams per kilogram. Why such a massive range? Because research suggests our bodies are not static machines. The speed at which we process these nutrients varies. The absorption rate of amino acids in the gastrointestinal tract can range from 1.3 to 10 grams per hour, depending on whether you're eating a fast-digesting whey shake or a slow-digesting steak. Furthermore, factors like the liver's ability to convert nitrogen into urea and the kidney's capacity to filter that urea act as biological governors on how much protein we can actually handle. The most compelling scientific argument for protein maxing is what we call the preservation of fat-free mass, FFM. When individuals undergo standard therapeutic weight loss, essentially just eating fewer calories, they often assume they are only losing fat. Research suggests a much harsher reality. In typical calorie-restricted diets, 20% to 40% of the total weight lost is actually lean body mass, which is primarily skeletal muscle. This is a metabolic disaster. Research indicates that skeletal muscle is a key marker of metabolic health, responsible for more than 75% of all insulin-mediated glucose disposal. If you lose muscle while dieting, you are essentially shrinking your body's primary engine for processing blood sugar. This can lead to a condition known as sarcopenic obesity, where a person may have a healthy weight, or BMI, but dangerously low muscle mass and high body fat, a combination studies associate with increased mortality and metabolic disease. Protein maxing acts as a shield. Studies suggest that increasing protein intake to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram per day or higher allows weight loss to occur primarily from adipose, fat tissue, while protecting or even increasing skeletal muscle. Mechanistically, this works through a complex signaling pathway inside your body called the mTOR signaling pathway. When you eat protein, specifically the amino acid leucine, it acts as a molecular on switch for muscle protein synthesis. When combined with resistance exercise, research suggests these effects are additive, creating a powerful anabolic stimulus that keeps your metabolic engine running even as the scale goes down. If you've ever tried to diet on high carbs, you know the hunger monster is real. Research suggests that protein is significantly more satiating than either carbohydrates or fats, and it achieves this by fundamentally changing your gut chemistry. It isn't just about feeling stuffed, it's about a complex hormonal cocktail triggered by the presence of amino acids in your small intestine. When you consume a high-protein meal, your gut cells release anorexigenic hormones. These are the fullness signals. The big players here are GLP-1, cholecystokinin, CCK, and peptide YY, PYY. Specifically, CCK works through the vagus nerve to tell your brain to stop eating sooner, while GLP-1 slows down gastric emptying, meaning that chicken breast literally stays in your stomach longer than a bowl of pasta would. At the same time, research indicates that protein is highly effective at suppressing ghrelin, the hunger hormone that makes your stomach growl and drives you toward the snack drawer. There is also the aminostatic hypothesis, a theory dating back to 1956, which suggests that elevated levels of amino acids in your blood signal the brain's satiety center directly. While some modern data has questioned how consistently this works, research still suggests that a high-protein breakfast can lead to a sustained reduction in ghrelin throughout the day compared to a high-carb meal. Let's talk about the metabolic tax. Every time you eat, your body has to spend energy to digest, absorb, and store those nutrients. This is called diet-induced thermogenesis, DIT, and research suggests protein has a much higher fee than other macros. To put it in numbers, the energy cost of processing fat is only 0 to 3%, and for carbohydrates, it's 5 to 10%. But for protein, research indicates the cost is a staggering 15% to 30%. One study showed that people on a high-protein diet burned an extra 297 kilojoules, about 70 calories per day, just because of this thermic effect. It's essentially free calorie burning. Furthermore, when you max protein while limiting carbohydrates, research suggests your liver works overtime through a process called gluconeogenesis, literally creating glucose from amino acids to keep your blood sugar stable. This process is energetically expensive and produces ketone bodies such as beta-hydroxybutyrate, which studies indicate further suppress appetite. You are paying an energy penalty for every gram of protein you consume, which research suggests contributes to the negative energy balance required for sustained weight loss. Now we must turn to the risks. And here, the science is far more nuanced than the high protein kills your kidneys headlines suggest. For healthy individuals, research suggests that protein intakes as high as 2.8 grams per kilogram do not appear to cause kidney disease or adverse renal effects. However, protein maxing does increase the glomerular filtration rate, GFR. It essentially puts your kidneys on a higher workload. For someone with pre-existing chronic kidney disease or even mild renal insufficiency, research indicates this extra nitrogen load can accelerate the decline of kidney function. There is also a documented risk of kidney stones, as high animal protein intake can increase the excretion of calcium and oxalates in the urine while lowering protective citrate levels. Regarding bone health, modern research has largely debunked the old myth that protein leaches calcium. In fact, research suggests the opposite. Protein stimulates IGF-1, which studies indicate improves bone mineral density and may actually prevent hip fractures in the elderly. But for the athletes and biohackers listening, there is a ceiling. Research suggests that very high protein intake, specifically exceeding 3.4 grams per kilogram per day, may actually lower total testosterone levels in men. While most of us won't ever reach that extreme level, it's a vital reminder that in human biology, more is not always better for your hormonal health. Not all protein is created equal. When we talk about maxing, the source matters just as much as the amount. Animal proteins are often considered high quality because they have a complete profile of essential amino acids and are rich in leucine, the primary on switch for muscle synthesis we discussed earlier. However, research suggests that high intake of red meat and seafood is linked to hyperuricemia, high uric acid, which can lead to gout. On the other hand, research suggests that plant proteins, especially soy, have protective cardiovascular effects. A major 2023 meta-analysis of over 600,000 people found that while high protein intake doesn't necessarily affect hard cardiovascular endpoints like stroke or death, high plant protein is associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular death. Plant proteins are also associated with more favorable lipid profiles and lower blood pressure. Another practical risk of the protein-maxing lifestyle is constipation. Studies show that high protein intake itself doesn't cause gut issues, but it increases the risk of constipation when paired with low carbohydrate intake. If you swap all your fibrous vegetables and fruits for meat and whey shakes, your gastrointestinal motility can stall. So, what is the final verdict? Research suggests protein maxing is a powerful, scientifically backed tool for weight loss, muscle preservation, and recovery, particularly for the elderly and those undergoing physical stress. However, it is not a set-it-and-forget-it strategy. If you choose to adopt this lifestyle, the research points to several best practices. Protein pacing. Research suggests that spacing your intake across 5 to 6 meals a day, aiming for about 0.3 grams per kilogram per meal, may be more effective for maintaining lean mass than one giant meal. Stay active. Clinical guidelines emphasize that keeping active, whether through a gym session or just gardening and housework, is crucial to help maintain muscle mass alongside your protein intake. Focus on hydration. You need significantly more water to help your kidneys process the increased urea load. Balance your sources. Mix in soy, beans, and fish to protect your heart and keep uric acid levels in check. Medical supervision. Research suggests that anyone with a history of liver or kidney issues should consult a physician before attempting to max their protein. Protein is an essential tool in our biological kit, but like any tool, it must be used with precision. Thank you for joining us for this evidence-based deep dive. You can find the mentioned papers in the description below. If you found this helpful, subscribe and leave a review. Stay curious, stay active, and we'll see you in the next episode. And don't forget to like this post and hit the subscribe button.